We're continuing on this streak of these really excellent in-platform users. This next presenter has probably turned off more use cases than most people in this room have even had a chance to start. She's been a user of the platform for years and seen a lot of really great success. Really excited to hear her perspective on this. Please welcome to the stage, Christina Sweeney.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna keep the momentum going and hopefully everyone's energized after that snack break. So we'll get right into this, and it's building meaningful consumer relationships at scale. So first I wanna just introduce myself. My name is Christina Sweeney and I'm a senior manager of consumer experience here at New Balance. I've been at New Balance for 8 years and really focused on the consumer experience. I'm a fierce advocate for New Balance, and it's been a passion of mine to work here because similar to you guys, I heard New Balance at a conference and I was like, I wanna work there. This was maybe 15 years ago as I'm aging myself, but I have a passion for the brand, and as you hear me speak about it, and if you hear anyone else speak about New Balance, you'll hear everyone's passion come through with what they're talking about. And this is actually my second time at Digital Velocity. I went to Digital Velocity back in 2017 when I was maybe 3 months into the job, and we only had Telium as a tag manager. I had no clue what Audience Stream was, but I ended up in a session and I knew we needed that for New Balance. And it's just been great how we've scaled this just in the time that I've been here. So today I'm going to take you through an introduction to New Balance. I know everyone's pretty familiar with our shoes and our brand, but I'm going to give you some numbers behind that. And then deepening the connection with the consumer, our omni-channel execution of this, how we're thinking of AI. Obviously, you've heard a lot of people talk about AI today, so we're just going to keep that momentum going, and then think about how we're governing AI, as that's very important with New Balance. And then I'll go over some takeaways. So just going over some numbers, we were established in 1906, and I'm actually wearing the 1906 today. I will get away from this just so everyone can see. It's one of our most popular models, but definitely just a nod to our heritage, and that's something that New Balance is really grounded in. We have over 115 products sold in over 115 countries, which is phenomenal. We have 55 global offices around the world with our headquarters in Boston, Massachusetts, and that's where I am. But as you're thinking through consent and GDPR, we're thinking about it across 55 different countries. So something that I'll get into a little bit later. We have 14,000 employees worldwide and 11 manufacturing facilities. That also is 3,000 stores, and I'm sure everyone's familiar with a store or a factory store that you've gone into, but we also have many locations in New York, so if you're sticking around, definitely check it out. We have done $7.8 billion in revenue. That was for last year, and we've given back over $150 million to New Balance Foundation organizations. So I wanted to go over our brand purpose because this really grounds into what we're going to be talking about today, and it grounds just New Balance as a whole. We've been independent since 1906, and like I said, we were established in 1906. We empower people through sport and craftsmanship to create positive change in communities around the world. Now I want to pause here because I want to focus on we empower people. People are at the center of everything we do. And we're very consumer centric. So we're always constantly thinking about our consumer and how we're going to engage with them. So now I'm going to go into deepening our connection with our consumer. Our goal of our program was to have an integrated program that celebrates, elevates, and inspires action powered by our voice of consumer. So where we started. First off, I had to add this picture of this adorable kid because it's, a little baby. This is where we started. We're growing up soon. We are a data-driven culture with a passion for our brand. And like I said, everyone that you talk to at New Balance is very passionate about the brand and our products. We want to also bring that passion to our consumers. So we want to make sure we are listening to our consumers and giving them the same passion that we feel about our products. But as a brand, we knew we needed to connect further with them. So I know you've heard this throughout some of the speakers today, like meeting them where they are within their journey at the right time, at the right moment. We were still trying to figure out how we were going to do this. So we wanted to focus on what were their expectations across digital, retail, and our events. We wanted to make sure that, as we're speaking to our consumers and listening to our consumers, that they're getting the same experience across that omni-channel. Because if we're showing up differently, on site than we were through our retail, people would feel disconnected and disjointed. So we wanted to make sure that that came out seamless. So in doing this, we wanted to make sure we were collecting the voice of consumer at these different touch points. And that's through, our digital and our customer care calls and chats, and then also in our retail experience. This did not happen overnight. This is taking a lot of time to, kind of figure out. We tried to loop in digital surveys before, but, we kind of did, and I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with this. We did this like back end way of trying to get some of these surveys off the ground, but it was just one survey and that was disconnected to our calls and chats. So we knew we needed a bigger program. And this took some time. So we had to get buy-in from our executive team. And in doing so, we had to get an executive sponsor, someone who really advocated for this program to be off the ground. So we then worked across the following teams to make sure that we had the right people in the room to really say what we needed and figure out how we were going to work with the voice of consumers. So that took us into, we worked with our business solutions team, our e-commerce team, consumer insights and analytics, which is where I sit on my team, and then our retail team. So this is just the evolution, and I will go over this but not read everything on this slide. But we started off and we had this siloed consumer listening. Our digital team really didn't have any way to get any voice of consumer and listen to our consumer. And then our retail team had their own tool. We had Google reviews that was separate of everything. And then we also had our calls and chats. So they were going into Salesforce. All of that was disparate, and we didn't know what the common themes were around the entire channel. So we conducted omni-channel consumer journey mapping. And we knew that we had to have a voice for this to come full fruition. We initiated an RFP process and we had Qualtrics. So we've been using Qualtrics to just have all of that data in one central area. And then early 2024, we launched our first digital survey, which was actually phenomenal because we unlocked this entire community that's not going to call in. I mean, we have so many different users and consumers of the product, and they were not always just going to call in or write a Google review. From there, we've operationalized a baseline program, and we're continuing to monitor how we're getting that insight into action. We're looking at our dashboards. We're starting to shape the long-term vision and then also measure. And I know other people were talking about measurement too, but we're measuring this and the impact that it has on our brand. So now we're kind of growing up a little bit. We're continuing to listen. So what that means is now we have all of those listening tools in place, and that's in one spot. We're looking at product reviews. We have customer care calls and chats, and then we also have Google reviews and surveys all in one place. We're listening and we're getting all of that feedback in. And we're continuing to ask. So that's implementing more on our site. And that's not just through a feedback tab, but we're also looking at where in the touch points that we want to continue to listen. So this can also, and this is some other things that we're doing, we have abandoned cart surveys, we have delivery experience surveys. So we want to make sure from start to finish that we're listening to our consumers. So if they deliver, if they return, we have surveys on that. We also have QR codes in store, so people are able to just leave feedback if they want to. And then we have customer care contact surveys. Then we're going to understand. So we're looking at our dashboards and we're making sure that we're getting the key themes from what people are saying tailored into, a tangible way of acting upon it. So now we're going to move. We are running insight into action. So we've listened to our consumer, but we wanted to further connect. And obviously we started using Telium Audience Stream before we started doing the listening, but we wanted to leverage that first party data. So I know a lot of people have talked today about first-party data. This starts with the data layer, and I loved the I Love Data Layer shirt because that's what we got up and running, and we had a really strong data layer. We started to actually create audiences based on what people were doing on site, and then obviously we linked in some further data with our consumer data warehouse, but this was such a great unlock for us because we were able to now create audiences based on interests and demographics, geography, getting just deeper into how we wanted to, leverage how we're speaking to our consumers, or even just how we're going to market further. From there, we wanted to execute. So it's not just Telium Audience Stream. We do have to work with other vendors. We're working with Optimizely to get the content in front of people, and also with Salesforce. So we're getting that right content in front of the right people at the right time. Now we're still working to explore and expand upon this. We're using Moments API, and we're going to be doing some first page personalization. This is just going to be a huge unlock because we often, and I will showcase this later in a use case, but we're looking at the homepage often to personalize on. However, when someone comes to our page, we need to know who they are. We can use the visitor profile and Moments API to then say, you're landing on our page, you're going to get this content right away. So what I do is I work with the teams across the organization to identify the who, the where, and the why. So who are we trying to target? We're looking, like I said, across demographics and behaviors that people are exhibiting and what their preferences are. So some examples of that. We have a lot of different categories, and I'm sure, everyone has kind of touched upon our site, probably for different needs. So we have, tennis with Coco Gauff, our great athlete there. We have audiences based on tennis. We have it based on baseball. Obviously, we have different seasons that we want to target these people, but then also keep them engaged throughout the year. So we have a running audience, we have lifestyle audiences, but that's just different categories. We're also looking at geography, and I'll get into some more examples on that, but if we're trying to target a different event, we often will do events where we're looking at, maybe the Miami area. So we want to say on site in a promo bar, hey, you're located in this area, come to this event. These are just things and ways that we're using personalization today. And we've seen tremendous benefits from actually doing this personalization. And geography is a huge one, especially as we're trying to target different areas. And then getting into the where. So where do we want to place this? I did mention the homepage, but often, and I'm sure if anyone's worked with, different e-com teams or just teams in general, the homepage is a prime real estate, and often people are like, no, you're not going to take the homepage. I want it to be this message. So there's always those conflicting messages there. However, we've seen great benefits with tailoring it to, personalized audiences. But there's other times where we want it to make sense. So we'll use product pages or maybe the account page where we'll personalize to. We'll often use the promo bar or other banners as well. But not only are we thinking about site, we're also thinking about this in marketing. So I know the example before was talking about email. We have plenty of different emails that we're doing. Often, I'm going to use running a lot because I'm a runner, so bear with me on that. But, after maybe, 3 to 6 months, I want new running shoes because I've worn mine out. So what we've done and what we've set up is having a running replenishment email that says, looks like you might need new running shoes. And we can target that audience using the data that we're getting, the first party data and the purchasers. You purchased a running shoe, here's like 3 months out, you might need a new pair. This is a great way to keep our consumers engaged with us and also kind of build that trust and loyalty where people are saying, you're right, I probably could use a new pair. And hey, maybe there's a new color out, or maybe there's a new style. We're often dropping new colors, so I think that this is a great way and just a new way to engage with our audience. We also do this through our social channels and then paid media as well. So I think, as I was talking about meeting the consumer where they are, If they're not on our site, we do have a certain, I'll say like, hey, Gen Z, they're probably on TikTok. Let's engage with them. Gen Alpha, probably, they're on Snapchat. We're also targeting those types of audiences. So we have demographic data some demographic data on some people that says, here's a lookalike. Let's get these similar audiences and engage with them on Snapchat, on TikTok, on Meta, making sure that we're at the right place at the right moment. And then why? Why do we do all of this? We want to measure the results, but we're also, I think, what I was saying before, we're building brand loyalty. We're making sure that we're staying relevant, but also that we're meeting our consumers. So, we're constantly trying to engage and make sure that, they know what's out there and what products are available. So this is a use case. And again, I told you I'd be talking about running a lot, so I had to plug this shoe. I just ran in this past weekend, and I will say it's phenomenal. I ran a 5K. It's a great race day shoe. I'm just gonna sell you products while I'm up here, but it's our SC Elite. And this is definitely a specific use case. We wanted to connect with our running audience, but we also had other brand moments that were happening at the same time. This happened at the same time as like back to school audience. We definitely want to keep that message relevant, but we also had this key shoe launch. So we were able to personalize this to our running audience. We had the SC Elite in that hero spot, but then we had the New York City Marathon right underneath it. And I think if you've been around, there should be some New York City Marathon stuff with New Balance if you're, running around New York. But the thing with this, we had great results. So we saw that traffic to the product page increased 40% week over week. And then this was up 126 to our benchmark for our homepage personalization. We're trying to extend this to future use cases. So as I said, the New York City Marathon's coming up. I told you how we do geography, like that. So we're doing running audiences and, people in the New York City DMA, and we're gonna have the homepage personalized to that running audience with New York City Marathon content. Again, we're meeting people where they are. If they're in New York, they're gonna see this message, and they're also, if they're a runner, they're gonna see this message. This is just one of the many examples, but we have other product launches that are happening next year that we're going to further extend this to. And then other brand moments. We have so many athletes, and, we have a lot of, if they win, I'm going to use a very relevant example. Shohei Ohtani is hopefully maybe going to get another, I don't know. We'll see. But if they win the world championship, then that will be completely, Shohei is a big deal. But there's other instances where there could be like a Sydney McLaughlin who's a runner. Not everyone knows who she is, but if you're a runner, you do. So you're gonna have that personalized content like, hey, Sid just won, here we go. That's gonna be the content that you're gonna see. This is stuff that we're still continuing to develop, but we've made great strides. And again, we're gonna be using Moments API, so hopefully when you first get to site, this is the message that you'll see. So understanding our consumer is really just the beginning. We're still exploring, and I know everyone's heard a lot about AI, but we're thinking about it in the terms of New Balance and how it's reshaping the consumer experience. We want to make sure that consumers understand AI as well. Like, how do we expect that they want to use AI, and how is it going to enhance their lives? This is something that I've also thought about. Do people want a personal shopper on site, or do they want to reorder shoes from their order history page? This could be something that we're kind of looking into it, and we're trying to understand how it can benefit them. We're trying to also anticipate what new needs and new behaviors that they want to exhibit. So for instance, we have a chatbot on our site. Do we want them to be able to type in, I'm running a 10K this weekend, recommend a shoe for me? That could be something that people do want. Now, I am also a person who I am embracing AI, trust me, but I also don't want them to know too much about me. Do I want them to know I live in a cold climate? Yes. So yeah, recommend something that would be good for cold climate. What jacket would I wear if I wanted to run in a cold climate? Do I want to know I live in Boston, Massachusetts? No. To me, a little maybe too creepy. But that's what we're trying to anticipate as we're looking into AI. With all of this, and I think this kind of goes into the next point of, we want to make sure that we're gaining trust and transparency with our consumer. So as it's embedded in our daily routines, we want to be transparent on how we're using it, but then we also want to maintain loyalty with our consumers to make sure that they understand, yes, we're trying to enhance your life, but we're not trying to gain more data from you. Like I said, we're still figuring it out. There's things that we've started to already go and do. We've been using some AI tools today. So we have agentic AI within some of our listening tools. Like I said, as we're doing surveys, we have retail post-purchase surveys that say, we have an open-ended that says, how is your experience? And someone could write, bad. Be like, okay. That's all, and you're not going to get anything from that. So we have another thing, agentic AI that says, okay, can you tell me more about what was so bad about that? We're starting to see really great results, and people tend to ask more and just dive in a little bit more on why their experience was so bad. Or they never say it's bad; they always say it's good. So just delete that from your memory, but. Like I said, it's getting to the point where we can understand a little bit more about our consumers. And that's just one way that we're trying to explore with AI. Another way that we started to implement AI is through our chatbot. Now, if you write in the 10K for shoes, no, that's not going to come up yet. But we're looking into it. Another way that we're using it is through our self-service. So one of the main issues that we saw through our listening was people wanted to maybe cancel or change their order. And that was something that people had to call in to do. But now you're able to do that through the chatbot to say, okay, have you done it? Have you placed your order in the last hour? Let me look it up. Now we're giving more options for people to just better service their lives and not have to, we're seeing money saved on agents' time and then also, less frustration because I'd rather use a chatbot than have to call in a number. So that's just one way. We're also using generative AI in some of our dashboards. So we have a couple different tools that we're using today where we can gain insights and themes across channels. So we have a couple different ways where we can say, we have some generative AI turned on that says, where are there rage clicks on the homepage? And it can give us some information there. It helps us to work faster and smarter. And so it's saving time across, not only within, within our time and then also within agents' time too. But I will say with all of this, we can't just turn it on. I know a lot of people who would get mad at me if I did. This is going to lead to the next point on some governance. So with governance, we have a cross-functional team to review how data is collected. We call them the AI Governance Committee. They scare me. So I make sure that I am very upfront on what we're trying to do because obviously we're not trying to collect more PII on people, but we want to make sure that they're also aware of how we're going to use it and they're giving the okay on if we can use AI in certain standards. We want to make sure that they're ethical standards and that it is compliant. We have built-in feedback loops, and that's also within our consumer listening. So as we're doing surveys, people can say that they want to be contacted, and we'll make sure that we are having someone contact them. Having that feedback loop, and I know that was also talked about a lot today, provides a little bit more loyalty. With our consent management, we have clear banners on our site to inform how their data is being used. So, we work closely with, we have OneTrust, but that's also managed within Telium. We make sure that we have a system that says, they've opted out of these cookies. It's in Telium, it's stored there, so we know do not collect it on this. We're using that within a lot of our marketing as well with audience streams. So we know these people opted out of communication, do not email them, do not, send other retargeting. We're building that trust as we're doing consent management as well. And then we want to make sure that we're transparent through explainable AI. We want to make sure that they know how AI is being used to enhance their experience across all channels, and then also make sure that they're comfortable. So building into that loyalty even further. So some takeaways. First, assemble the team. Assemble who you can trust and who knows existing systems. Get that buy-in early, build relationships with the teams, get the executive buy-in, and make sure you can action on those insights. Continue to listen, ask, and understand the consumer. Make sure that they're also aware. It's like you're listening to us and you actually understand, and we can see it come through. I feel like that's the biggest thing, because yes, we're listening, we hear the surveys, but sometimes you fill in those surveys and you're like, I don't even know if this is going anywhere. We're making sure we're gaining those key themes and actually actioning on them. So meet the consumer across the journey. So what works best for them? Are people on social? Are they on your site? Where are they in your journey? Are they going to, a dead-end page that you might, if you're personalizing on it, then it really doesn't matter. Make sure you're meeting them where they are and personalizing off of that. And then investigate how AI works with your brand. So, as everyone said, AI is here to stay, and it's only getting bigger. No one has it perfect, I don't think. Everyone's still trying to figure out, but keep up with the times. Make sure you're investigating how it works and being strategic on how you're using AI. And then make sure you gain that loyalty with the consumer. Be clear and transparent on how you're using their data, because that's how you'll gain the trust of the consumer. All right, with that, thank you, and be sure to find me on LinkedIn.